Hello there everyone and welcome to another edition of Lydia's Crafty Corner with me, Lydia, in my little crafty corner. So today we are going to be creating this card. It features some really beautiful delicate florals from the Crafter Flower Rhododendron with a bold background. So this is the die set we will be using today. This is the Crafter Flower Rhododendron. And this has 2 beautiful blooms in as well as 3 different leaves. So I'm going to add all of my images onto a piece of white cardstock. This is some classic Crest Solar White. And I've just added all of the pieces onto that. And I'm just going to cut all of them in one go. So you may need to move these around just to fit on, but they will fit on perfectly. As well as cutting all of the pieces once, I did also cut the set of 3 leaves a further 2 times, but I didn't end up using all of them, but I will have them for a future project. So you can see that all of those pieces have been cut beautifully. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to arrange all of these pieces onto my low tack mat. Now we do have 2 petals which kind of work with each other, so they layer on top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the base layer and I'm going to pop that over to the side, and we're going to do that a different colour. The rest of the petals I will be doing the same, as well as these 2 small pieces that I've just popped at the top. My low tack mat is one of my favourite things to use because it's going to keep all of those pieces in position while I ink blend them. So I'm going to be taking a really light colour. This is the Peachy Keen Fresh Dye ink. And I'm going to be adding quite a lot of it to the base of the petal, but then not so much to the tips. I do want to have that colour at the base of the petals, but I want more of a white look at the tops of the petals. So that's why I'm trying to add a concentration of that ink just at the base, but then I didn't really move up very much into the petal. I then wanted to add more of a kind of gradient effect, so I wanted a little bit more of that up the petal. So to kind of counteract the amount of ink that I do have on my blending tool, I'm just taking a piece of scrap paper and I'm just going to blend off some of that ink so I can then go further up the petal without adding too much ink to it. So you can see I have that scratch paper over to the side, and I just use that to get rid of some of the ink. I'm just going to keep going and finish the rest of the petals. You can see that I have gone back onto some of them just to add a bit more of that really light peachy keen colour to those little elements. So I'm just going to keep going until I have added as much ink as I want to these. If you want more of a white colour flower, you would have to kind of get rid of a lot more of the ink off your blending tool before you tried to do this one. But you can get a white effect by just adding a really light colour at the base of the petals, and that's going to give you some kind of interest and definition that way. So for the 2 petals that are going to have a layer over the top of them, I am going to go in with the terracotta ink, and this is going to give me a beautiful kind of, I don't know, kind of a garnet colour that's going to poke through those little die cut pieces that we have on the further layer of the petal. It's going to look very, very pretty. I do have a set of rhododendrons in my garden, and I love them. They are so pretty when they come out, and how they all cluster together when they do have their blooms. They are very pretty. So you can see just how they're going to layer up, and they are going to look very, very cute when we pop these together. So for the little stamens, I'm going to bring in the piece that I've die cut them out of, and I'm going to pop them back in. I'm doing this on the mat because this means that they're going to stick in that place, but it also means that they're not going to bend because they have that kind of shield around the outside with the die cut waste. For these, I am going to be using the Lemonade Stand ink. I'm trying to add more of that ink to the base rather than the tips. Now, this is a layered stamen, but I chose to use them as 2 different ones so I could get more stamens coming out of my flowers, but you could definitely layer these up if you wanted to. To add more of an effect, I am adding a touch of that terracotta just to the base of the stamen pieces. So again, these are supposed to layer up on top of each other, but I will be using them separately to get a greater concentration of those kind of pollen forming things that we have in the center of the flowers. So once that has been done, I'm then going to go on to the second set of stamens that we have. Again, these are layering stamens. One has the kind of little pollen pieces right on the end, and then the other piece doesn't. So if you were to cut these out of different color cardstock, you could get that varying effect. But because we are using ink blending to color our cardstock, we can get that anyway. So again, I'm using the same colors as before. I'm going to be using the lemonade stand for all over the stamen, and then the terracotta just for a little bit of a touch at the base. So now I have all of my little flower pieces that we can pop together in a sec, and then we're going to go on to our leaves. For a little bit of a difference, I decided to go with a grey for my leaves. This is the silver lining. It does have like a kind of touch of green to this one, but it is mostly grey. I thought that it would be really pretty. You could definitely go with green leaves. You could go with blue leaves. I do like to mix it up with leaves, and I think these grey leaves look really, really cool, especially with that colour flower that we have. We're also going to have a really dark blue background, and I thought the really light grey leaves would be a really brilliant contrast to that background. So that's why I've chose to go with the grey on these ones. I did do all of the leaves, so I did have 3 sets of 3, but as I said before, I didn't in fact use all of those on my card. So once I'm happy with the amount of ink blending I have, I'm then going to separate my 2 blooms. So to do that, all I'm going to do is I'm going to separate all the little die cut pieces that have the keyhole on, and then all of the ones that have the little arrow. And as with the crafter flowers or our other layering dies, we do have this amazing keyhole system in the newest renditions of them. And this is going to mean that you're going to be able to line just those little die cut images in the center of the flower up, and then you're not going to need to worry about like petal placement. It's fabulous. Is it great? So to give me a little bit more dimension and interest, I am curling my petals, and this is going to give me that 3D look that I'm after. And I'm also kind of folding down that little score line that we have on the petals as well. And for even greater dimension, I am going to add some foam tape to add my images together rather than glue or a little bit of glue tape. So as you can see, I'm working out where that little die cut arrow is first. Then I'm adding the piece of foam tape and then popping them together. So I then have this layered petal. I do have some glue tape on the back of the front piece, and I'm then going to add that into place onto the base layer before I add this into place, because I did want to curl it and add a little bit of dimension to that as well. So normally the layering guide tells you to put the base piece down first because it has the die cut, and then to add this piece over the top. But because I wanted to curl it, I wanted them to both have the same amount of curl. That's why I've added them together at the first place. Okay, so once that has been done, I'm then going to add my stamens into position. Like I said before, I do have 2 stamens. Normally they would be layered together, but I wanted more of a bushy stamen, so that's why I'm going to use both of these pieces. I've just added a little dot of wet glue to the center of my flower, and I'm just going to pop the stamens into place onto that and then leave that to dry. Once that's drying, I am going to do the other flower, and the other flower is the one that has the little keyhole section. I'm going to be doing the same technique as before, so I am curling those petals. All I'm doing is kind of just going from behind and pulling those petals out with my fingernails, and that is going to give me that really great kind of curl that we get on there. And once I have the curl, I am bending down the little emboss section that we have on each petal to give it a bit more interest as well. I love this kind of easy way to add interest and detail to layered flowers. Just by giving them a little bit of a curl is going to give you so much, I don't know, dramaticness to the end piece that when we create. So I've added the first 2 layers together. I then have the layered petals, the one that's going to peek through. And I'm just going to add some glue tape to the top section of that. I always recommend that you add the glue onto the top section so that when you place that down, you're not going to get the glue showing through those little holes that we have. And that's not what we're going to want. So once that has been done, I'm going to add this piece into position. You can see I'm just lining up that little keyhole section at the bottom, and then I'm going to add in the pieces that's going to cover that over. I'm going to add the little stamen pieces in first. I've added a little bit of glue just to keep those in place. And again, I am adding those 2 layers to give me more of a stamen look in there. I'm going to add the little, the little cap piece at the bottom, and then I'm also going to add this little piece that's going to make it look like the petals below are curled up. It looks very, very pretty. I love how these turned out. I do love rhododendrons, so I'm really happy that we have a new Craft-A-Flower rhododendron in our collection. So once that has been done, I have my 2 beautiful blooms all ready to go. I can then go ahead and create my background. So I have a piece of cardstock. This is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And I'm going to take some of our satin masking tape and I'm going to add a 1/4 inch border on all of the sides. So that's going to give us a really great kind of bold white edge once we pull this off later on. So for the background, I'm going to be using a number of different blues. So first up, I'm going to be using some of the Dusk ink. So this is from the Cool Summer Night selection or ink family. And I'm going to add that all over the little panel that we have masked off. Now I'm using a small blending tool here, but I should have used a large blending tool as it would have taken me a lot less time to go about this. So I have sped this part up a little bit, not too much, just so you can see how this goes. Now, if you're not happy with your blending, just keep going with it. Just keep adding a little bit more ink and then you're going to get more of a solid look like I have here. So once that has been done, I'm then going to move on to a second colour that I'm going to add around the outside edge. The second colour that I am using is again in the Cool Summer Night family, and it is the very pretty Desert Night. I think this is such a beautiful navy colour. I am a navy girl and I do love all things dark blue, so I am loving this colour. So I'm just going to add that around the outside edge so we get that kind of vignette effect around the outside of the little panel that we have. To even darken that up further, you could add a lot more ink, but I am in fact going to use another different ink to add more depth to this one. So I am going to be using the navy, and this is from the Deco Garden inks, and I'm just going to add a tiny touch of that one right on the edge, again to kind of darken up that vignette effect that we have. Once that's been done, we can then remove the tape. Now, I would recommend being very gentle and slow with this while you do this. It is a very great tape and I don't tend to get a lot of tearing, if any at all, but to get around that, you can definitely kind of slow your process and it will help you out. So if you really kind of pull at this, you may tear it, but if you go nice and slow and pull it back on itself and keep it as close to the table as possible, you're going to get a really great clean line with this one. It is my favorite tape and I do go for this again and again. I don't think I would buy another masking tape ever. This is my favorite. So I'm just going to keep going and then you can see just how great that tape is to kind of hide that white edge, and that is just so bright and I think it looks absolutely stunning. So once I have my background and my flowers ready, we are now ready to put together our floral cluster. So I'm going to kind of tuck these flowers in together. I always find that it's best to put your biggest elements in first, and my biggest elements are these 2 flowers. I'm then going to go ahead and curl all of my leaves. I'm just doing the same technique as before of just curling them around. So we're going to get that kind of look. You could have curled some of them forward as well. That would be very, very pretty too, to give more interest and depth to the composition that we're about to put together. So I am adding some foam tape to each of these petals or leaves before adding them into place. I'm kind of adding them in a triangular format just to give us that great visual look with the triangle. So once that has been done, I then decided to add a little bit of artiness or a little bit of art look to it. And I'm just using some of the pure white ink spray, and I'm going to tap on some little splatters. I did do a lot of this, so I kind of concentrated it around where the flowers were and tried not to get the same concentration all over the card. So I have more of that ink towards the flowers rather than away from them. Once that has been done, I did leave that to dry. Now I have a sentiment here from the Essential Sentiments hot foil plate and the matching die combo. And I've just used some brass foil to not to heat emboss it, to foil that. Once that has been done, I die cut it with the coordinating die, and I'm just going to add a touch of foam tape behind that and pop that into position. I am having that hanging over the side a little bit, the same as the petal, just to give me more interest on that side of the card. And here is the card complete. I really, really do hope that you enjoyed this video today and that you like the card as well. If you do create a card that was inspired by this, it would be great if you do share, because we'd love to see. Thank you so much for watching, everyone, and we really do hope you have a wonderfully crafty day. See you again soon. Bye-bye. Hey there, Lydia here. I really do hope that you've just enjoyed the video. If so, please subscribe to the Altenew YouTube channel. Also, turn on the notification bell so you can get your daily dose of crafty techniques and tutorials just like this. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.